Happy Thursday. Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. I'm Matt Wolff, founder, CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we welcome Scott Leese into the Wolff Den. How's everything going?
Well, Matt, love the intro. Love the Denver Broncos thematic colors. Well done.
Yeah, these are actually the Gator colors, but they're Broncos.
Gator and Bronco colors. You got it all covered.
And grew up in New Jersey, so actually it was like the Mets and the Knicks too.
Oh my gosh!
When we first started becoming a fan, but somehow I just kept going orange and blue, and now those are my colors. Great to have you here. We're going to talk a lot about sales and tactics and strategy, and probably a whole other bunch of stuff. But for the people in the audience who don't know who you are, just give a quick introduction.
I'm Scott Leese. I've been a sales leader in SaaS and technology for about 20 years now. Started way back in 2004, so I guess 17 plus years. My specialty and my niche has been in growing and building sales teams from kind of 0 to 60. That first couple year period where it's just Matt and a product and an idea and doesn't know how to sell it, doesn't know how to scale it. So I've been a VP of sales about a half dozen times. Started my own consulting and advisory firm a couple years ago, and now I work with about a dozen companies at a time from all around the world, and have a couple other businesses on the side, including surf and sales and Thursday night sales and a Patreon group, and written a couple books, and have a real estate company that I run. And, got my hands in a lot of different things.
So not too busy, right? Not a whole lot going on.
I might not be as busy as you might think. Everybody always says how do you have time to do anything? But I find downtime to relax and enjoy things. I'm very efficient when I do work.
Yeah, and that's it. That's probably a good place to start, because I joke about that. First of all, no one's too busy to do stuff, whether that's return a phone call or sit down for an hour and watch the show or spend time. We all have the same amount of time. It's just about how do you handle the time that you have. And it's a good thing, in sales, being able to handle the time that you have and to manage the time that you have is really one of the things that I think made me successful in sales, and one of the most important things. So when someone just say, I'm too busy, I got too much going on, I don't believe it. I think that someone can come in, but it might be you. I could probably do it. There's probably a professional in that range who can come in and say, you know what, you're kind of wasting time here, and here, so you can kind of streamline this and maximize. Yeah. It'll help you sell better, but it'll help you be better, to be like, you're not always rushing and doing something. What do you think of that?
Well, I think one of the things that trips people up is they overthink everything. They expect perfection out of themselves. And before they finish a task or release a piece of content or make the next call or whatever, they're frozen because they don't know if it's going to be perfect, and they can't get it out. It slows you down, whether you're just sitting there thinking or revising and re-editing things over and over and over, trying to come up with the perfect email, right? So I think it is advantageous if you have this just tiny bit of slacker in you that's 88% is pretty good. Let's get that shit done and go off to the next thing. And I definitely have that kind of DNA, and it helps me move quickly and therefore get a lot of things done. If I need to reach out to somebody, I send the message. I don't overthink it. Boom, I hit send. If I'm going to create a blog post or a piece of LinkedIn content or something like that, I'm half the time I'm typing it up on my phone while I'm walking my dogs, and boom, I hit send before I can even think about it and kind of question whether it's any good. So that's one of the tricks that I've found that help get more done, be more efficient, and you just eliminate distractions as well, right? So before we got on this podcast right now, I'm like, hold on, let me turn off all of my notifications. Let me put this thing away. I'm not doing anything else other than this thing. So, you lock in on one task, finish that one task, and then boom, move on to the next task rather than trying to do 5, 6, 7 different things at once.
So that's an interesting point, because I for these purposes, I think that's the right thing to do. But I'm a big multitasker, and I kind of operate basically with a clean inbox. If I can get something off my plate for a minute or two, I'm going to do it, because every second or minute I don't do that, the likelihood that I'm actually going to do it when I'm done with whatever I'm doing, it decreases. A lot of people say don't multitask. Where do you stand on that?
I think it depends on what we're multitasking. For example, if I'm in a meeting that doesn't require me to be on camera, and it's not about something that's like super pressing or needs my immediate feedback, you best believe I'm multitasking and I'm cleaning stuff out, right? I can listen to a podcast and learn a little bit while I'm clearing out my email or while I'm editing some sales scripts and things like that. But if I'm trying to write, a deep thought piece on something, I'm turning my Slack notifications off for a particular amount of time. But I'm similar to you. Like, I'm inbox 0 all the time. I'm notifications 0 all the time. I get like massive anxiety when that stuff builds up.
Well, how about when you see someone's phone just full of red?
I can't do it. I look at my wife's inbox in her computer. It's like 19,000 unread emails. I can't.
That doesn't even seem like
a lot. Sometimes I get on a Zoom call with people and they'll share their screen, and I look at all the tabs they have open at the top, and that gives me anxiety and stresses me out, right? So I think maybe there's a time and a place for multitasking, but you're not necessarily multitasking, Matt. You're just context switching. You're just switching from one task to the next, but doing it very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So this email has your full attention right now for 30 seconds, and then boom, I'm back to editing this sales script. And then, this other thing came in and I'm locked in on that, and I go back to this real quick. Some people struggle with moving seamlessly between those things, and it derails them massively. So they've got to come up with different kind of strategies to help them still, get enough things done every single day.
Yeah, because it piles up, and then you're just like, it's so far down the list, and you got 19,000 emails, and you're just trying to figure out. Part of that's, a strategy. Part of that's, you have to be organized. When you're in sales, you just have to be organized, and that's another thing that I really focused on with my sales, is being organized. I have folders for everything. It's very easy for me to find something when you ask for it, which and being quick to reply and get back to someone is huge.
Yeah, I was the same way, and that organization spills over. We were talking about inboxes and tabs open and stuff. If you looked at my desktop right now, my desktop has one folder. That's it. And I look at other people's desktops and they like can't find shit anywhere. Yeah. Right. And like, that's a reflection to me of like staying organized. I go into this one folder and then it splinters out into consulting business, surf and sales business, Patreon business, book business, right? All these different things. And I just go deep from there rather than having all of them up front staring at me in the face and overwhelming me, which doesn't work for me. Same thing with my phone. If I showed you my phone, like home screen, I have like 6 folders. I have very few apps. Everything is like clean, right? I get distracted too easily. And so for me, I've learned to just like, the less is more. The less distraction I have right in front of me, the more things I can get done.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to go. But everyone's different, and we're going to get into that. The philosophy of everyone's different. There's no playbook. There's no one perfect salesperson who does this, or this. But I want to start from the beginning, because my journey into sales was kind of a very delayed one and an interesting one. How did you get into sales? How did you know, hey, sales is something I'm going to be pretty good at?
Well, I never knew that until I was already in it. I studied psychology and religion when I was in college. Got a master's degree in learning and instructional technology. Then I got super, super sick, actually, and was in the hospital from age 23 to 27, fighting for my life. I had 9 major surgeries, 4 emergency abdominal surgeries, and 2 of them were life-saving. And I got addicted to opioids in the process, had to kick off a drug. So I was 27 years old before I really ever stopped and thought, well, what am I going to do for like a career? And I had a friend who was in technology sales, and he was on my college tennis team with me, and he said, hey, maybe you should give sales a try. Like, you don't have to have, experience. You don't have to have a degree in it. And if you do good, you make lots of money. And I'm like, wait a second, what? So I paid attention when he said, the harder you work, the more you get paid. I understood that as a competitive athlete. I played college tennis and college soccer, and that whole philosophy of like, you do good, you earn more, you do bad, you get cut, you don't even get to play. I understood that level of competitiveness, so it made sense to me. So I went to an early stage startup and, picked that on purpose because I felt like I had a better chance of being given an opportunity and a better chance to learn, a better chance to maybe move up quickly. I had no idea if I was going to be any good at it or not. None. And, the first couple of days were absolute hell. I was convinced I was going to be terrible. I think I was the last guy in my hiring class to actually close a deal. But once it clicked, I got hooked. And, at that point I was like, okay, I think I can make a go of this. Right. And I started taking it super seriously and been doing it ever since.
Yeah. And how do you become, a salesperson who's doing well to think, I'd like to show people how, because you're not a manager per se, right? But you were kind of like training, advising, or were you doing management?
Well, that's what I do now. But, I was actually only an account executive for like 8 months, 8 months. I got really good, really fast. But I also realized for me, this job sucks. That's what I remember thinking that this job sucks. Like I just have to call people all day long. Like that's not that fun. What was more fun and interesting to me was I would kind of try to teach the people sitting next to me, my friends on the floor, like what was working for me and what I was doing. And then I'd watch them implement it. And I would get a big, huge, runner's high, if you will, off of watching Matt succeed because of some advice that I gave him. And at that point, I was like, I need to get into leadership. That's what I need to do. I need to teach other people how to sell. And once I, kind of locked in on that, I started to learn more about the career path for sales leadership and, get into like the VP level and executives. And I dug a little bit more into the startup ecosystem. I'm like, actually, the only way to make money, unless you're in sales, is to get into the executive branch. If you're in startups and you're trying to get a pop off of all this equity, like that's your best bet. So I sort of chased that dragon, for quite a while. And I've been, kind of doing it ever since. And now I specifically work with early stage startups and help them build a sales process and a go-to-market motion and, help them recruit sales leaders and sales talent. And, a lot of fun kind of working with a dozen different companies all at the same time rather than just one.
Yeah. So I graduated and had a run of crappy jobs. And my dad kept saying, go into sales. You can make more money. Now living in Florida, that was really the only way to make money is getting sales. Unless you're a doctor or a lawyer, all the jobs here in Florida were terrible. You'd get into advertising, they'd pay $18,000 a year, and you'd work 50 hours. I'm like, yeah, no thanks. But the two things is I didn't feel like I was kind of shy in a way, and I wasn't very pushy, and I didn't like to be phony. And I thought that's what you need to do sales. And then I finally got into sales, and I realized there are people like that, and they can be very successful. But you don't have to be that way to be successful in sales.
Yeah, I love that. And, I was always like shy, reserved, total wallflower type person. The only time I was ever really outspoken or comfortable was when I was on the sports field. Whatever sport I was playing. I played basketball and baseball in high school and stuff as well. And, it took me a long time to like get confident and comfortable and just like put myself out there and try to sell my own way. Like I'm never going to be, this big, brash, loud, outspoken kind of voice. I'm never going to be somebody who wants to be on camera all day long, but I am somebody who wants to take the last shot. I am somebody who's like, give me that phone. Like, let me try, I can close this guy. Right. that type of thing. So, I found my own way and that worked for me. And I try to teach that to other people. And like you, I don't think you can pigeonhole people and say, hey, this is the only way to sell. I think everybody's going to sell a little bit differently. There's a lot of underlying philosophies and principles that need to be met. But Matt's personality is different than Scott's. Matt's stories will be a little different than Scott's. Scott's speech pattern will be a little bit different. The way that he uses his voice with his intonation and tone and things like that is going to be different. And then when you get really good, you learn to kind of change it up and you recognize like, well, maybe I'm playing a character right now. I'm talking to somebody from New York City, I better talk a little louder, better talk a little faster. If I'm talking to somebody from North Dakota or Wisconsin, maybe I slow down a little bit. I articulate a little bit more, right? And maybe I use the slang out in California. I grew up in Northern California, and only people in Northern California say hella all the time. So you talk to somebody in Northern California, you throw out hella, and all of a sudden there's rapport and there's bond over that. So you start to match and mirror a little bit, and you realize who I am when I'm selling doesn't have to be who I am as a person when I'm not selling, and that's okay.
Yeah, and if you're in Miami, can you throw a bro in there once in a while?
I'm never in Miami, otherwise I might need to.
Yeah, you got to get into Miami. So, along these lines, I thought you have to be a certain way. I'm a different way. I think I did fairly well in sales. These people who do it their way is also well. The question is, can everybody be good at sales?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody can be better than where they are right now, but I don't think that means everybody can be good at it. And quantifying that somehow is incredibly difficult and challenging, because I've not wanted to hire somebody before and been overruled by a sales manager of mine who just like begged me, and I'm like, fine, fuck it, go ahead. When you're wrong, I'm going to throw it in your face. And sure enough, they're right. And I'm like, how is that person, so good at sales? And I've been convinced by other people are going to be amazing, and they've been a total dud. But there are some people who just can't do it. They just can't. It's not in their personality. They don't enjoy it. And that's not something, if you're a sales leader, that's worth like overcoming. I don't think.
Yeah. It's I've been around some truly bad salespeople, and the crazy thing is half of them have got promoted. And we were talking about Seinfeld before. Remember when Elaine became the boss, and instead of firing the guy, she promoted the guy? So I don't even know. That's somewhat reality, that people just like, I don't want him, but we can't fire him. So what do we do? Well, let's move him somewhere else. It's crazy to me. It's some of this stuff, the salespeople that got away with the stuff that they did and still had a job. That's a lot of big, I worked for a big company, big corporate red tape type of stuff, and everyone's terrified about firing someone.
Yeah, I think I think if you go towards some of those companies that people have the propensity to just kind of hang out and hide out, and they can just exist there and get by and survive. And that is not the same in a startup. I mean, everything you do or don't do is heightened, times 100. So if you're in a startup environment, you can't afford to hire those kind of people.
When it's time for me to hire someone, I'm going to be terrified of it, to try, because you have to hit on these. When you're bigger, you can afford to miss on a few, but at the beginning, you got to hit on them. Otherwise, it could really set you back, time wise, which is in some ways more important than the financial loss that you might have. One of the philosophies I have that I talk about is there's a lot of bad salespeople out there because there's a lot of bad customers. And I no better example for me is the auto industry, which I'm fighting with right now. There's people who will go in and say, "Oh yeah, that's how much it costs. Come on in, we'll talk." Oh, and then they just sign right there and they give terrible deals. So now these salespeople think everyone who comes in is going to be like, "Oh, I could do that to them. I could convince them to pay more than they should," and it's terrible for me. But I think a bad consumer creates a lot of bad salespeople who get rewarded for bad behavior.
That's interesting. I haven't really thought about it that much, and I'm trying to transfer it over to other industries. And some people don't know how to be a buyer. If I'm going to go look for a piece of software, and to your point, if I'm convinced that, I can get a deal and just negotiate or pull the wool over somebody's eyes, if I go try to buy a piece of software and I go in with that attitude, just try to steamroll everybody, that salesperson who's working with me has two choices. They either let me go, or they might bend to my will or push back and kind of follow suit with some of the same tactics. And then those tactics kind of live on. And that's why creating the right environment, if you're a sales leader, matters, because I want my sales reps to be empowered to be like, you know what, that's not going to be a good customer for us. So I've got to create goals and compensation plans and a culture where it's okay to say no to certain people, right? And they're not just closing a deal because they want the commission, and who the hell cares once the deal is in, because that makes problems for customer service, for the product team. Sometimes it's just a mess for everybody. So I can see where this, kind of flywheel perpetuates itself. And, it's one of the reasons why, for me in particular, where I've decided to put most of my efforts these days is like, how can I coach and mentor sales leaders at scale? And that's some of what I'm trying to do through, my Patreon community, through the Thursday night sales community that I run with Amy Volas, through my surf and sales events with Richard Harris, kind of creating the next sales leaders of tomorrow to hopefully change some of this stuff and eradicate some of that bad sales behavior.
Yeah. And you talked about incentivizing. And to me, that's the biggest issue with companies is they don't incentivize properly for their salespeople. Whether it's, hey, I just need to do anything to get this job in, or hey, I've already hit my goal, so everything that happens from now until the end of the year doesn't mean anything, or I have no shot to hit my goal, so everything that happens from now until the end of the year doesn't mean anything. Let me sandbag it and set everything up for January. Like, it's why do they? It's like the biggest, easiest way to sabotage a good salesperson and actually chase them away, or just have a bad sales environment.
Yeah, to come to the defense for a second of sales leaders, like whatever plan you put in place, salespeople are going to look for a loophole and try to exploit whatever plan there is, right? So you can only do so much. But I think some people just give up, to be honest with you. I think some people just say, fuck it, I'm never going to get it right. They're always going to, try to pull one over on me. So I'm going to fight back a little bit and just be like, this is what you have to do or else. But it's terrible. I mean, I see comp plans all the time where like once people go over 100% to quota, there's no more incentive for them to keep selling.
Zero.
So why should that person keep going? Because they care about the company? Come on, man. The company is going to fire them if they don't perform. And, the founders want everybody to be just as invested as them. Okay, well, give me 40% of the company and I'll be just as invested. Yeah. Otherwise, pay me appropriately and incentivize me to keep going. Or there's those comp plans, to your point, where somebody's so far away from goal, they're like, you know what? It's October 28th. Like, I have 2-3 deals I can close, but I'm not even going to get to the point where I earn commission. So I'm just going to hold those back until November 1st. So why do we set it up that way? We perpetuate this crappy environment. So we should be trying to get rid of all of these different loopholes that we can, incentivize salespeople to bring in the right type of customers, pay them appropriately and on time for bringing in the right type of customers, right? And then, slowly this thing gets better. Does it become 100% perfect? Probably not. But can we be better than we are right now? Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah, I mean, I was in situations where I was selling more and making less year over year.
That's people just raising the quota on you all the time, right?
But that's another thing that they do. But it's all about incentivizing properly, and to keep you engaged. Because in sales, if you're paying me commission, everything that I'm earning, you're earning. And so if I'm not earning more, then you're not earning more, right? You're not just saying, hey, we're giving you an extra 20K here. That money is built on the stuff that I bring in. So you're, paying me more is a good thing. It means you guys made infinitely more money. And, I don't know. It's
well, some leaders get it locked in their head that like, a salesperson here should not make more than 200 grand.
Yeah.
A salesperson here should never under any circumstances make more than 500K. It's like, wait a second. Let's say Matt's already hit his 500K of earnings, but he's brought in $5 million to the company or $10 million in deals to the company. Why would you risk pissing that guy off? Why would you not incentivize them to keep bringing more people in, right? The amount that we pass on down to the people who brought in these deals should be appropriate for what they're bringing in. And you shouldn't cap it. ever.
Yeah, it should never. And you got to be very careful not to let a good salesperson go. And you understand that when the pandemic happened and everyone was getting let go and furloughed, my first thought was, this is it's going to be a very bad thing when things pick up again, because even if you furloughed someone and they come back, they got probably one foot out the door already. They know, yeah. And if they leave and you got to replace them, it's probably a 50-50 shot that you'll replace them with someone as good or better, right? And then even if you do replace them with someone as good or better, there's a ramp-up period and a training period. And so all these good people were let go, and now they're trying to find jobs. I think companies.
Well, now you know what has happened is all those people found a job, they've been doing well, and now they're looking around and they're being courted by everybody and their mother out there who has got a company. And companies are in a massive talent war right now. And salaries have gone up 20 to 30% in sales and sales leadership and in marketing as well. And even beyond compensation, our whole world has changed. Now everybody's comfortable and have proven themselves to be successful working remotely, working from home. So you start trying to tell people, I need you to come to the office 5 days a week. Matt's going to be like, fucking out of here, dude. Because I can get a job that pays me as much or more that doesn't require me to commute 35 minutes each direction Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
Right. So the whole game and the power dynamics of employer, employee, and how you incentivize people has changed massively. And all the power right now is with the employee.
It was, even back in the day, what annoyed me so much is the 9 to 5. Like, they didn't give a shit what I did. They just wanted me to be there till 5. And I'll be honest, I did very little work 4:30 and on. I just sat there and twiddled my thumbs and did, I was already out of there mentally, but they want you to stay there rather than, use your time wisely and work wisely. I mean, that was happening well before the pandemic. Sure. Excuses of what they say, hey, we need you to be in here. Part of it is they're paying a lot of money to have this.
They want control over the situation, and seeing you in your seat in the office gives them the illusion of control.
And then I asked my old boss after I left, I said, how's it going with the people working from home? He says, you know what? The people who worked hard at the office work hard at home, and the people who didn't work hard in the office don't work that hard at home. And it's kind of the same thing, which is, it makes sense. But I don't know. It's tough. It's really tough to make decisions. Like, you interview someone. Let's talk about the interview process, because someone will be like, hey, you got to come in and meet 11 people, and it's a 6-month thing.
Yeah, nobody has time for that anymore. If you run that interview process right now, you will not be able to hire anybody. You might have been able to get away with that before, but you won't be able to hire anybody right now.
But regardless of how many times you meet, I mean, you just don't know about someone. You have these feelings. Yeah. You can kind of read their resume, which is mostly probably embellished a little bit. I know.
Well, that's the hard part about hiring for sales roles is, there's no test you can give that prove that they're going to be good. People can talk about their past, but their past accomplishment doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be good at whatever they do now. Just because I was good at selling Qualia or Main Street Hub doesn't mean I'll be good at selling Ticket Time Machine. It could just be a totally different type of prospect, a totally different type of sales cycle. It could be too technical for me and I can't understand it, or it could move too fast and I don't have the, shark teeth to be assertive enough. And then people's mindset can change, right? When I was 27 years old, literally all I cared about when I started that first sales job, all I cared about was, how can I close more deals? How can I get good? How can I build more pipeline? How can I close more deals? How can I get promoted? That was all I cared about. Obsessed with it. Well, I'm 44 years old now. I got 2, preteen and teen kids. I got mortgages. Like if I was to go work for somebody else, I ain't fucking showing up to the office at 6 a.m. anymore, dude. It's not happening. I'm not staying in the office 15 hours a day like I used to when I was a kid. No, it's not happening. My mentality is different, right? So does that mean I'm going to succeed more now or less? I don't know. We don't know. Well, so much of it, I think, has to do with does this person comprehend the fundamentals of how to sell? right? And a lot of those fundamentals are the same regardless of the type of sale that you're in. And then I think it comes down to, who is this person sitting across from me, metaphorically? Who are they? And who do they want to become? And what are they willing to do in order to get there? And if I can get a good sense of those things, and, the resume kind of checks out and people aren't, just embellishing, as you said, then you got to pull the trigger. And it's tough if you're bootstrapped and haven't raised a bunch of money. It's tough to relinquish some of that, control if you're a solopreneur, right? And say, okay, Matt's going to do just as good a job as this as Scott is. It's scary. It's very scary. I get it.
It's part of the reason why people don't do, they don't. And some part of the reason why people don't get into sales is, when you're in sales and when you're an entrepreneur, you got to go all in on yourself. You got to bet on yourself and have the faith that you're going to be able to do whatever it is you need to do to get the job.
Over and over. It's not one bet either.
Right.
It's repeated
every day or multiple times a day. And there's not a lot of people who want to do that. They'd rather take the safe, 9-to-5 job. Here's my salary.
And it's also not like your rewards are just constantly compounding with every bet. There's sometimes, if we use like a Vegas analogy, like you're winning and all of a sudden you crap out as a salesperson, you're back to fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that happens. Sometimes we feel that way when the quarter ends or the month ends and you're back to zero. You ever had your best month ever or your best quarter ever, Matt? And you wake up the next day and it's April 1st or May or July 1st, or the quarter and the month just ended. And you're like, oh my God, I'm at zero right now. You ever have those moments?
I feel like I never had a quarterly sales job, where mine was always annually based.
Well, that is a little bit different then. You don't have to deal with it. But I had jobs where we had monthly quotas.
Yeah,
I was in leadership roles where we had monthly as well as quarterly quotas. And I'm telling you, today is October 28th. Like, we would be sprinting till October 31st, and we would show up to the office November 1st and just be exhausted and be like, oh my God, I'm at nothing right now. Right? It feels like you crapped out and you got to pick yourself up, by the bootstraps again and be like, okay, off we go, back to war, so to speak. It's exhausting. And you're right. That is why people don't get into it at all. That's often why people don't stay in the role and migrate over to, I don't know, marketing or customer success or operations or things like that. You really have to love the game of it all sometimes, I think, and that high or that low. To me, working in an environment without those highs and lows feels absolutely soul crushing.
Like on the golf course too, like shit, and you hit that one.
That one shot keeps you coming back, right?
Yeah, it doesn't even have to go in. It's just a good shot. You're like, oh man, you know what? I hit a pretty good shot on the 8th hole.
That's right.
I'm in a long time, maybe not as long as you in the sales side. I still dread sometimes picking up the phone or crafting that email or outreach. Do you still feel that way this far down? And why do you think that is?
Yes, of course I do. I hate following up with people is my main thing now.
Yeah, I love it.
My main thing now is like, we chatted, we had a conversation. If it makes sense, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I can't handle people who take a long time to make decisions, and I can't handle people who just, disappear. So I don't go chasing people anymore. Now, I'm by no means advocating every salesperson on earth adopt this kind of mentality and philosophy, but I have built myself and my businesses and career up to a point where I can get away with that.
Yeah.
Right. Because following up for me is a miserable experience. Absolutely miserable. So I don't think it ever goes away. Sometimes I have to do it, I have to suck it up and do it in particular occasions where I'm trying to track something down. But my dad a long time ago told me they call it work for a reason, son.
Yeah.
And I know that philosophy is maybe not as hip or cool anymore. And everybody thinks that we should only do what we love, but that doesn't mean there's going to be moments that, you don't hate what you're doing. Right.
You ever see Mo Money with the Wayans brothers? He goes, "A job ain't nothing but work." That was Damon.
There you go. So there's always going to be some element of that, I think. It doesn't mean you don't love what you do, but there's going to be times where you're pissed off at what you're doing or what you have to do. And you got to do it anyways. Those are the times you got to battle through, right?
Well, people are the worst. They really are. I mean, they're the best, but people are the worst. And
it's tough.
You got to deal with them. You can't, the average person or company or, they can't choose. You can't just choose your customer and be like,
yeah.
You can get to the point where you said, look, I can pass on this or I don't have to chase this. But, I'm not at that point, and it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just have to keep pushing though. And you have to not take it personally, of course. And one of the things you got to do is find a way to separate, your like self-worth and self-esteem from your results. And that's really hard. That's really hard to do because, if you've been tied up in result, like I've been an athlete my whole life, tied up in results. If I win, I feel like $1 million. If I lose, I feel like absolute dirt. Well, if I hit my quota or I close deals, I feel great. If I don't close deals or I have no pipeline, I'll be texting my friend Richard, or I'll text somebody that I know, and I'll be like, I don't know if I'm going to last. It's like this up and down kind of thing. But you try not to get too high when things are great. You try not to get too low when things are bad, and just ride it out and keep belief and faith in yourself, and surround you with people who kind of boost you up, and keep trying to improve a little bit every day, right?
Yeah, I'm a huge pop culture guy. I'm always talking about movies. The Rosie Perez scene in White Man Can't Jump was sometimes when you win, you really lose. I mean, I used to think if I'm right, I'm right, and it matters that I'm right. But it doesn't. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong anymore, and that's unfortunate. But that's also life, and we have to understand that that's the way it works. So it's not always about whether or not I win or lose, because like Rosie says, sometimes when you win, you really lose. And sometimes when you lose, you win, and
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times, there's a lot of deals that I have wanted in the moment that I didn't get, and have felt glad that I didn't get them later on, because I found out from somebody else who got the deal what a pain in the neck that thing was, or I really wanted this deal and it didn't happen, and you know what? It worked out because now my schedule is a little more free, and I can go play golf tomorrow instead of work all afternoon, right? And those trade-offs and trying to keep some of that perspective, I think, becomes increasingly important as you progress through your career.
And I feel that way about some of the jobs I didn't get. I'm like, man, I'd really dodged a bullet by not getting that job.
Yeah.
Which, and that's a huge thing, because that could change your whole life, the difference between taking the wrong job or getting the right job. And I fell ass backwards into the job that propelled me. I was out of money and I had to take a job, and I took a job. I took the job. I had no idea what I was selling. I'm like, well, I don't know. I need a job. I had to drive an hour and 15 minutes to get to this place. After the first day, I called my brother and sister almost in tears saying, I'm not going back. And I ended up going back. A year later, we get bought out. 6 years later, I'm here doing my own thing, which I think it all kind of builds you.
Yeah.
To where you man. It's well, let's talk about what you've, some of the stuff that you've created. Thursday Night Sales is how I met you, through Zoe. We had Zoe on the Wolff Den, and she's part of Dooley, who's a sponsor of Thursday Night Sales. But talk about Thursday Night Sales, why you created it, and really what it means to you. I think it's a great community, a lot of really, really smart people in there. And then you understand as you listen to them, like there are a lot of people doing very well, and they're unhappy. Right? There's a lot of shit that they got it right. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
Sure. Yeah. I started Thursday Night Sales in March of 2020, which is literally right when the pandemic started. And the reason we started it was because of the pandemic. Everybody had literally just gone into lockdown. And my friend Justin Welsh and I were like, hey, look, you want to do a little virtual happy hour for some salespeople? I was sure. And I think 25, 30 people showed up. And then the next week, he wasn't going to be around, and I kind of thought it was a fun idea and wanted to do it again. So I asked my friend Amy Volas, said, hey, you want to, sub in here? And there was way more people. There was maybe 75, 80 people this time. And so we just kept showing up. Me, Justin, and Amy became 3 co-hosts. At the peak, we had about 500 people every Thursday night showing up. to our virtual happy hour where we just answer questions from the audience from all around the world and give advice. And Justin had to move on and focus on other parts of his life and businesses. And Amy and I have been going, and we incorporated the business, and we're now the world's largest virtual sales happy hour and the longest running virtual sales happy hour in the world. And we've got like 20,000 people who have come to our happy hours in the last year and a half. And we have a couple thousand people in our Slack community. We had a live event in Las Vegas a couple weeks ago. And, it's just a place to hang out and learn from and associate with people who are in sales and revenue community and just looking to get better and help each other out, and you listen to people, and whether they're a CEO or an SDR, just getting started, sometimes they're doing really well, and sometimes they're pissed off, and sometimes they're doing really well and they're unhappy, and sometimes they're not doing really well and they're unhappy. And, it's just a reminder that somebody's professional success doesn't necessarily translate into personal happiness. But it's also a good reminder that even the people who are doing really well still have struggles and still challenged and don't have everything figured out, right? Like, just because I'm where I'm at doesn't mean I'm not frustrated every single day by something in my business. Just because Amy's, where she's at doesn't mean she doesn't feel like her house is on fire somewhere in some part of her business. Like, none of us have it all figured out. We're all doing the best we can, trying to learn from as many people as we can. And we're also all winging it a little bit as we go. And so why not, kind of come together and try to be better as a group? And that's kind of the overarching philosophy of the company and of the meetup.
I've only been on a few. I love it. And I'll tell you why. It's real. It's raw, right? I mean, it's a private community in the sense that it's a safe space, as Amy and you guys say whatever you want. I was on the other day before your Vegas trip, and you awarded this girl, and I don't remember her name, a woman, I don't remember her name, a free trip to Vegas. And she started crying. Yeah. And I almost started crying, just sitting there on the other end, just to be like, how powerful is that? And the other thing that's great about the Thursday night sales is I've been on 10 to 15 of these calls where you start out, it's a happy hour, and people did it because of the pandemic, right? Not many people be like, you know what, there's enough value in this, so let's keep doing it. Right. Be like, oh yeah, all right, we passed the time. We got a lot of other stuff we can do. No, these people are showing up every Thursday in droves, and you're helping people who need help, and they don't necessarily know where else to go, because it's different. You could read a sales book and you could read what the playbook is, but sometimes you just need to hear other people's real experiences. The interesting thing in there is, like, the two rules that I live by the most is don't ask a question you don't want to know the answer to, and don't offer something that you want someone to not take you up on. And you get a lot of people asking questions, they don't really want to hear it, right? You tell them exactly the answer, and it's true, and they don't want to hear it. But why ask the question? Yeah.
Well, some people, you come to Thursday night sales, or you just have a conversation with me or other mentors you might have, and I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. And Amy is the same way. And I think a lot of people in the community are that way. And, Amy always says this feedback is delivered with peace and love, right? So we're going to tell you some strong things, and we're going to turn the mirror on you. And it might not always look pretty, but we're trying to help you. We're not trying to tear anybody down. We're trying to build people up. We've had a lot of wonderful sponsors. You mentioned Dooley. We've helped a lot of people find jobs, through our sponsors and through just networking with each other. And that was really important for a while. And, now, kind of helping people level up. But now I think everybody is just like, there's a genuine amount of care and concern for folks. And, you want to pull people into it who've never heard of it before. And, you want to be around those kind of people. And we'll see how long we keep this thing going, but it's a lot of fun right now. And, obviously grateful to everybody who keeps showing up. And if you've never been before, you should check it out. It's free every Thursday night, thursdaynightsales.com.
Yeah. I had lunch with an old coworker and told them about it. I said, I don't know how, because that's the other thing. Like, for me, I don't know how it helps me. You just feel good being there and just hearing some other people, and it kind of
Well, yeah, it's a little bit funny sometimes. Sometimes it's a little bit emotional. Sometimes you hear questions that, you might also have that same question and you get to hear an answer about. Sometimes you hear questions and the answer comes and you're like, okay, good. I did it that way as well. And that's like validating. Sometimes you just hear some people struggle with the same things you are, and that feels good. Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, also, I think one of the things I also think, and there's probably studies about this, is I think a lot of people already know the answer to the question that they're asking. Yes. They just need to hear it told to them.
They just need to hear it. That's right. They just need to hear it so they can trust their gut. It's just like, Matt, I know you know the answer to this, okay? But I'm going to tell you anyway. And then by the time the answer comes, Matt's like, yeah, you're right. I knew that. I just needed to hear it.
But then even still, there's a ton of things I know I need to do, whether it's eat healthier or do this or something, and you don't do it. And until you're ready to do it and you can, put everything behind it and be like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to stick with it. That's the other thing too, like getting the right answer and then being able to implement it, all very difficult things to achieve.
Well, that sets you apart from the path, right? I mean, a lot of people will ask the question, seek to understand the answer, and then don't take any action, right? I talk all the time about action over words. And, one of the best ways you can separate yourself is to take action and take it quickly and do the things that you say you're going to do. And just by doing that, you probably lap 90% of the field. And you start to realize that's not actually that hard. I just have to do the things that I said I was going to do. Okay. Yeah. And then that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Then that fires you up to do it more and to keep going. Right. And you get in that mindset and that kind of frame of working behavior, and, success is born of that sometimes.
Yeah. For me, sales. So the important thing for me is be honest, open and honest, and communicate in that way. And then do what I say I'm going to do and say what do what I say. Yeah, I'm always going to do what I say I'm going to do. To me, that's the most important thing about, it's the most important thing about being a human being, because everyone deserves to get, human decency. But in sales, I think people are fine. It's okay to tell someone, I don't know the answer to this, or it's okay to say, look, it's not the right time and here's why, or just because let's not waste everyone's time. That's the big thing for me in sales. What give me 2 things or 3 things that you think are the most important things about being a sales? What has been the most important for you, or what you'll tell people as a leader in sales?
Well, the first thing is nobody cares about what you sell unless they believe they have a problem. I always start there. I wrote a book a couple years ago called Addicted to the Process, and I kind of overlay the recovery process from addiction to the selling process. And you don't walk up to an addict and say, hey, you want to go to rehab? Do they look at you crazy? And they're like, I don't have a problem. Well, sales is the same way. So I don't walk up to somebody and start pitching my product if they don't believe that they have a problem. So that's the first place. The second place that I think matters more than anything is your mindset. And you really have to protect it at all costs. So working on your self-confidence, your self-esteem is huge in sales. You're going to fail 99 times out of 100, right? We've been talking about sports a little bit. You mentioned earlier that you're a Knicks fan. It's like
I was Ellis. I was a Thunder fan,
Dale
Sonics
Ellis
fan, and then
okay. So Sonics fan. So go back to Dale Ellis and Detlef Schrempf and Sean Kemp and Gary Payton and all these guys, right? Imagine Dale Ellis missed 99 out of every 100 3-pointers that he shot. He would never be in the league ever. Yeah. But if you're 99 misses out of 100 in sales, you get 1 out of 100 in sales, you're historically considered a fucking rock star.
Yeah.
And you're going to make a lot of money. What people don't talk about is the 99 times that you failed. We deal with failure more than any other field I can think of. More than athletes even, right? A baseball player probably deals with failure most out of any sport.
Yeah.
They fail 7 out of 10 times. They do that long enough. They bat 300. They're a Hall of Famer.
I was just going to, that's the exact example I was going to say. Hall of Famer. 7 out of 10.
Yeah. So imagine though, you're a sales rep. You got to fail 99 times, hopefully, to get one right. That takes a lot of resiliency, a lot of self-confidence, a lot of self-esteem. So I think that is super important. And the last thing I say is that I think you really have to stay focused on your why. Like, why are you here? Why are you putting yourself through this? What are your goals? And it's not just a goal of, well, I want to make such and such amount of money. Well, why? Why do you want to make 250? Why do you want to make 500? Why do you want to make $1 million? What are you going to do with it? And keeping that front and center, and the way that you goal set to me is you small, achievable, attainable goals, and they compound on each other. And that gives me momentum, and that momentum keeps me going to stack and build bigger ones. And I think people lose sight of why they're here. When they get 50 calls in a row that go south, they just get so bummed out, and they forget, like, I'm doing this so I can buy a new house, so I can move school districts so my kid can go to a better school. Like, that's why you're doing this. You're not doing this to make X amount of money. You're doing it because money will allow you to move here, which gives your kid a better chance of success, right? So that's part of the legacy bit. So those three things to me are just vital and things I've always tried to preach and stay focused on.
Yeah, that's great advice. We talked about Thursday night sales. Come tonight or any Thursday if you want to hear more about stuff. But you also have a surf and sales program, and you have a Patreon. So real quick, let's talk about those.
Yeah, Surf and Sales is a sales and leadership conference. A couple times a year, I take about 20 people down to Costa Rica, get outside of your comfort zone. And I'm a big surfer, and so we give people surf lessons, and we have locals come in and cook and clean and kind of take care of us and give us the 5-star treatment. I rent these 3 houses, these 3 villas right on the water. And, we do sales content from like 9 to 3 every day, and, have fun, have food, have drinks, and get some exercise and surf. And that has a podcast that we spun off of it. So you can check that out at surfandsales.com if you're looking for an alternative to like a boring, normal, typical sales conference. And Patreon is just a private sales and sales leadership community of mine. It's like a smaller version of Thursday night sales. Every Tuesday, I hold these events called Tequila Tuesday, where we do 90 minutes of sales training, and it costs $10 a month. So it costs you a bowl of Chipotle every single month to, have about 6 hours of sales training, as well as jobs that I float around through my network that I don't publish anywhere else, and other trainings that I've done, I publish, and private content and things like that.
And you won't end up on the can.
That's right. That's right. So, for anybody who's looking to learn more and try some things out and get connected, those are a couple options for you as well.
Yeah, and the information scrolling down at the bottom. Is this a pandemic beard and hair, or have you always had
the hair is pandemic. I had long hair down to my chest from high school all the way through college, and then cut it all off when I got sick. And I've had short hair, buzz, with clippers ever since. And on January 1st last year, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to cut my hair all year. So I haven't got a haircut all year. I'll get a haircut in January of 2022. The beard situation, man, this is just who I am. The beard comes, the beard goes. I make fun of myself sometimes, and I look like a homeless person and all this kind of stuff. But don't judge a book by its cover all the time, right?
Yeah, we have to judge a book by its cover sometimes. That's why, but it's good to not judge a book by its cover if you have the ability to give it a chance. We talk about your illness, and it had you probably not knowing if you were going to survive at some point. One of the things that I lost my dad in 2005, and that really, I always used to live life to the fullest, but that really hit, to me, to say, look, life can be short. I need to do what makes me happy. And I find that too many times people wait for some tragedy in their life or at someone else's life in the world to kind of have that mindset. And we have to keep reminding ourselves. I assume that what that happened to you gave you that mindset.
Yes.
Do you ever think about how life would have been different if that didn't happen? What type of path you might have gone on?
Yeah, I mean, it would. I imagine it being 100% different. And I mean that in a less positive way, actually.
Yeah.
As hellacious as that experience was, and as difficult as my life now is, health wise, it gave me a totally different perspective, a total different sense of urgency, and a different sense of belief in myself and what I could do. And so I now have the perspective that this was a good thing. Not that I would ever wish it upon anybody else, and not that I wish I couldn't take it away sometimes, but the things that I got out of it and learned from it, I think have really, really boosted me in my relationships and my career. And, I try to I'm pretty open and, pretty open book about all this stuff. And I try to share my story and, hopefully inspire other people as well, because I don't have some fancy background. I didn't go to Harvard or Yale or someplace like that. I didn't come from a sales family or anything like that. I just was down on my luck and had been through hell, and found sales and found it to be a way out, and made it happen in a way to change my life and that a lot of people around me. So
yeah, I think it's it's a great story, and to hear you talk during these things is, I think that the people who are elevated and who are the influencers and the thought leaders right now, I think it's all tired and old. And I think that people like you, and I like to consider myself part of this, the new voice that I think needs to be elevated more, because it's not only the same shit that's been said a million times. And it's not that people are we have this built-in following who's going to be like, yes, whatever he says is correct. And they keep getting rewarded for all this, again, bad behavior. I think there needs to be a new voice. I think you're part of that voice. I'm happy to be part of the network and enjoy being, on Thursday Night Sales. And so, I'm always happy to prop up the people that I think deserve it. And I don't prop up the influencers who don't need my help anyway. But, the people who are like, they got 3 million followers and 2.5 of those million aren't anyone. They're people who think that this person is going to help them out in some way. So I think, being real and genuine, I think, is a huge part of being successful in sales. And I think that's probably, as I can tell, a good reason why you've gotten to where you're going, and still not where you need to be. Right. I mean, as all this success that you've had, there's still this level that and you see and you're reaching for.
Yeah. I mean, you'll know when I've reached it, because I will be gone.
Yeah, we won't see you anymore, right?
As long as I'm around, I haven't quite reached it yet.
But then you're gonna be in Costa Rica year round, and you'll have 2 trips to the U.S. where it's like, all right, here's where you can get my Scott fix.
There you go.
That'll be the reverse of that. We'll get you out of here on the same question we get everyone out on. You can spend a day with anyone in the world. They have to be alive, and you can't be related to them. Who's it going to be, and what are you guys going to do? We do outreach for all of our guests. We're going to make it happen. We've had some outrageous answers like Vladimir Putin, which we won't be able to make happen. But we've had some very attainable people, even though they're famous. With enough money, you can get anyone to spend a day with you. I just learned that Roger Federer, $2 million, you get 24 hours with Roger Federer, and it literally the click starts the second he lands in there, and the clock goes.
Holy
$2 million.
Wow, that's incredible. I don't even know how to pick just one. Can I pick more than one?
Only if they're like a band like Pearl Jam.
Well, that's that actually would be right up there. I think that I would probably pick Tony Robbins.
Tony Robbins.
And here's why. Because that was the first book sort of about sales, even though it wasn't directly about sales. The first book that I ever read when I first started the job. And I know a decent amount about him, and one of my mentors used to work for him. And so I think that would be a very cool conversation for me to have.
I mean, you got a day, anything other than obviously you have conversation, but any activity that comes to mind?
Not really. I'll go surf with Tony. How about that?
He's tall, right? How tall is he? Like 6'4"?
He's bigger than me. I'm 6'2", and I know he's bigger than me.
Yeah, I'm 6'4". I know he's tall. I guess the last question is, when people ask you, if there's one person in the world that isn't who everyone thinks he is, For me, the answer used to be Mr. Rogers. I think that I've watched both documentaries. It's incredible the person that Mr. Rogers was. I think I put Tim Tebow in there. Is Tony Robbins kind of in on that level? Like, you'd be shocked if you saw some type of scandal with Tony.
I don't know. There maybe has been some sort of scandal with him.
Oh, has there? I don't know.
I would be shocked if there was some scandal with Obama, to be honest with you.
Yeah?
Yeah, I would be shocked. He seems like a genuine person. I would never think that he has done personally anything wrong to any particular individual, regardless of your political leanings.
I think he had a couple scandals. I think there was a birth certificate scandal, and then
That's not a scandal.
There was a tan suit scandal, I think.
Yeah, right? Tan suit. Yeah, big scandal. That's right.
Look, I'm going to join tonight. I know I'm leaving tomorrow on a trip, but I'm going to join tonight for a little bit. I encourage everybody. Check out Thursday night sales. Check out Surf and Sales if you want a different type of sales conference experience. Help Scott with Patreon and get a lot of value to become a supporter and part of his network. And really appreciate your time today. Always good to chat. And we'll see you tonight, and we'll see everyone next week. We got Brittany Brave on Tuesday. She's a comedian, going to make you laugh. So have a great night. Have a great weekend, and we'll see everybody soon.